A Plague Tale Innocence. You know, I got this as a freebie on Epic Games. And this is a more recent release. I mean, this was released in 2019. And you hear people say it's a good game. Okay, I'm not going to knock at that. It actually is a decent game. It is a good game. Mind you, I did not necessarily know what I was getting into when I first started playing this game. I mean, this is set. This is possibly an alternate history type thing. But it's set, in the time of the Hundred Years' War between England and France, set in, especially around the time of the Black Plague, the Black Death, whatever they want to call it. And it follows two children, basically, Amicia and Hugo de Rune. Your main character, of course, is Amicia. One could say she's a bit of a tomboy. And, well, what can I say? She goes with her father. It opens with her father, you know, showing off her sling skills. And she's more for I guess, the typical boy hobbies. Because her little brother Hugo is not well. And when I say he's not well, I mean there's something in his blood. But while Amicia is out with her father, and well, they follow the dog. The dog falls into a hole, and it's gone. Well, they head home. Now, back in these times, I mean, the Runes are one of the nobler families. They have a home. They have servants who look after who help them or work for them. Judging by how Amicia speaks, they're very kind people to work for. They treat their servants like their family. But after a little bit, where Amicia is getting something for her brother and wondering what's going on with her brother as well, the Inquisition attacks. They go after the de Runes. So you have to escape with Hugo and Amicia, also with Beatrice, who is their mother. The father is dead. The Inquisition killed him. Now, we also learn that Amicia's mother has been working on something to help Hugo. What he has is not necessarily an illness. One might call it a gift. Or a curse. So, as Amicia and Hugo escape the Inquisition, go to town hopefully to find help, Well, they're not necessarily welcomed in town. And the town is definitely under siege of the plague. So Amicia and Hugo, while looking for help, a friend of their mother's, who is also an alchemist, they are running around trying to avoid being spotted by crazy, very crazy uh, locals. I mean, we have to fight off one wearing makeshift armor in a churchyard out in front of a church. Honestly, I don't know what they're thinking. Well, they blame the Daruns for the plague coming down on the town. Of course, as we're making our way, we start coming across more and more rats. And I'm not talking like one or two rats that we can easily. Well, I'm talking a freaking swarm. If you can call them a swarm, it's a nightmare. But eventually, we will, get through the rat swarms and all that. I mean, when it's dark out, they come out en masse. And it's disturbing as all hell. It is very, very disturbing. Now, of course, as you progress and you find your way to where Beatrice's friend is, Laurentis, you find out he's not well, but he has his own apprentice, a young man named Lucas. And this is where you have to start being rather cutthroat. Not something Hugo's going to be too well at, but he will basically do. He is. Lucas helps us get stuff that we can make later. Stuff to handle certain types of guards, like some to force them to remove their helmet because you cannot slingshot a guy with a helmet on. It just annoys him. But we get Lucas, we get away from the town, well, with Lucas, and we cross a frickin' battlefield. One of the battlefields from the war. And to make things worse, of course, we're going to have to deal with rats too. You have to use fire. I mean, you need to have a light to keep them at bay until the right time. But we also have them getting caught up by some of the Inquisition's forces and running into new allies in the process. I mean, eventually, our little group gets to a castle that becomes sort of their new home. I mean, this place is built with traps to contain or stop the rats. and other things. You also get tools and all that to help you along the way, and craft some tools and that, and various things. But once you're at this castle, we learn of something new, a book that will help in finding a, quote, cure for Hugo. And as we go back to the town to get to a school that has this, of course, we got the rat hordes and all that. Well, we now have to work our way into town to this university where we're trying to avoid all the Inquisition people. And we finally see who our real big bad of the story is. A man named Vitalis. It is also at this time that we learn what is afflicting Hugo. If we haven't learned about earlier, but it's something called the macula, which is not necessarily a sickness. Could be considered a gift or a curse. Now, apparently, Vitalis wants to capture Hugo because he knows of this power and wants to utilize it himself because he's mad for power. But, of course, not having Hugo is part of the problem. Catching him. But we're trying to protect Hugo and keep him safe. We get a new friend in the process. We shouldn't necessarily get too attached to our friends. Certain friends do not make it through the game. But as we move our way through, we get the book. We hear that Beatrice might still be alive, and Hugo hears this as well. But Amicia, wanting to keep her brother safe, doesn't want him to know this news, not knowing that he already heard it. But we head back to the Darun estate, because apparently we figure out Beatrice had a lab there. So now we have to get down there, find what she had. And the rats are sort of, getting more apparently intelligent, like they know what's going on. Like there is a force controlling this mess of horror of all these rats, and my God, the place looks like a giant freaking rat's nest. I mean, it is disgusting. The amount of, quote, rat's nests you're seeing in this game as it progresses. If you've never seen a rat's nest in your life, consider yourself maybe thankful. But remember that this is a giant ass rat's nest. I mean, picture a cottage from the medieval times. One that has 2 floors, multiple floors. One that might be considered an estate. And consider that all covered in a rat's nest. Ugh, I'm just kidding. Ugh. And to make things worse, Once we get through all that, get to Beatrice's lab and get what she's been working on, and then bring it to Hugo to make him feel better, well, then he, quote, leaves. And we play as him for a little bit, as he's turned himself over to the Inquisition because he knows his mother is alive. So now we're playing as Hugo, and this is mostly stealth sections and trying to stay hidden as we make our way through. And once we do, Hugo finds his mother, and then they are confronted by Vitalis, where he unleashes all the rats in an effort to, force Hugo to control them, all in an effort for Hugo to protect his mother. And Laurentis somewhat brainwashes, no, not Laurentis, Vitalis somewhat brainwashes Hugo. Meanwhile, at the same time, he is developing his own. Now that he has Hugo's blood in him, he also has a control of the macula. But he's not controlling the normal rats. They've been breeding hairless ones that are not afraid of fire. And so you can imagine what Vitalis has in mind. Of course, now Vitalis has one of his top men attack the castle where Hugo and the others were basically living, with a rave of rats, and of course his own top fearsome judge or force, one who can start fire to keep the rats away from him if need be. And his job is, of course, to kill all the children, kill all the opposition, kill anyone that could break his control over Hugo. Which, of course, backfires because, one, Amicia is able to get through to Hugo, and two, well, we're able to stop them, so to speak. So now we have rats on our side, and we have to get to the cathedral, stop Vitalis and his his hairless rats. Which means sneaking through the city again, fighting off all these people. And what happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. We have to fight past more guards, working our way there, using what we can to extinguish any lights around them, kill them, get them devoured by rats. Yes, rats will devour stuff. Lickety-split. It's disturbing. Get into the cathedral, which has been defiled with rats' nests and all that, and fight in what has to be one of the most disgusting battles I have ever seen. It's a combination of keeping a path clear for the rats, avoiding the white rats, and then, quote, wiping out Vitalis. And what's so disturbing is this is a cathedral infested with rats. I mean, rats that are on your side and on the opposing side. It has been basically coated in a massive rat's nest. And you have this power mad priest. Ugh. Towards the end, we are successful. We have defeated them. However, Hugo, the Darun family is still not necessarily trusted. And so we must escape. Well, head back to where we are, a new hiding place or a new home, with Beatrice, Lucas, all our other friends and allies have either been killed or moved on. And that's where that game ends. Now, I know there's a second game. I'm not going to play it. I had enough of the rats. The ability to control the rats using the macula is neat. But with all the freaking rat nests and all that, I just can't do it. I just couldn't play. I was glad to be done with it. It is a very decent game. I mean, I even thought about, replaying chapters to get certain items, but now, after, the later I got in the game and the more rats and that I saw, I no. It's disturbing. And that is a mix of the time period and the sheer numbers you're running across. I mean, I'm going to say this. You want to get an idea of how many rats you're talking about. I mean, picture wherever you live. I don't care if it's a single floor place, multi-floor. Now picture every inch of the floor being covered in rats. That's what I'm talking about. Think of your hometown, but all the streets in that are covered in rats. Think of the sheer number that takes. And you're talking about the number of rats you're seeing in this game. And this is a reminder of how bloody the 100 Years' War had been. Imagine, if you may, a football field. Now imagine that field about 100 times bigger and covered with dead bodies. The game does not hold back on the imagery. If you are a history buff, you would appreciate what they did to capture the time frame. Black Death, 100 Years' War, France. And I'm going to say, if a large amount of rats does not bother you, this is a fine game for you. The story is great. The story is amazing. The premise is very good. It's one of those things that if you can make it through it, good for you. I think when I was playing through it towards the end, I was starting to actually push because it was just getting to me. And don't necessarily linger too long on anything. I know some people were very, oh, how can I put it? Got very focused on how well endowed a pig was. I can sure you snicker at that. But you have to note that this was all part of probably what was going on at the time. Being the wealthy landowner, they probably had their own livestock on the place. It just made sense. And that's all I'm going to say about A Plague Tale Innocence. I'll probably never play the second game, which is Requiem. It was a trial and a half to get through this one for me. And yeah, it was a decent game. But that's it for this retrospective. This might be the last I do for a little while because I'm pretty much caught up on all my retrospectives. I haven't beaten any new games recently. So, until the next retrospective comes out, please check out all the other stuff I have up on the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Give this video a like, and take care all. Bye.